Hello, everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news as the Rangnick clear-out begins and Rangnick identifies the area that is weak in this Manchester United side. And also, we will be talking about these Scott McTominay comments from yesterday, which, to be honest, I'm probably going to defend him a little bit on this, which people might surprise because ultimately I judge him as a footballer. I don't dislike him as a person. Probably does show a little bit of a weak mentality in his response to the question put to him by Sky yesterday. But some people probably quite rightly have said if Paul Pogba had reacted like that, he'd be getting absolutely slated. But it's all right because McTominay's British. So we'll go through some of his comments. When put on the spot about sideways passing, Scott on the spot. Spot on the Scott. No, that doesn't work. But look, yeah, he was basically asked about sideways passing and he snapped. And, you know, realistically, as a Man United player, you've got to be better in interviews than that. He came across as a bit moody, which, you know, it wasn't a great look. Some people liked it, some people didn't. I wasn't that bothered about it. We'll talk about that in a bit. But let's start off. Obviously, Jesse Lingard leaving is the headline. I mean, I don't think this will, just starting off on Jesse, I don't think this will come as much as a surprise to people. It's not actually the thing I'm going to lead on. I want to talk about what Rob Dawson's saying in the ESPN, that Ralph Rangnick identified Manchester United's midfield as an area of weakness in his interview with the club before he even got the job. And he's interested, and before he was offered the interim job. And I think he's absolutely spot on there. And there's a few players that have been identified, Hadara that we've spoken about before, and a couple of others, which we'll go into. And look, that's encouraging. I think that even from Scott McTominay's interview, he spoke about Rangnick being very firm and behind closed door being a lot firmer than he is face-to-face. And I think face-to-face he is quite firm and honest. Already in 2 post-match interviews, we've had Rangnick speak quite openly about things he didn't like. So he's firmer than that behind closed doors. It probably just shows you what we always know. United for 3 years has been a mates rates club where everyone's been everyone's mate. And I think now we're a proper footballer club again. So I'm excited by that. And I think the players will respond. I think we'll get more out of our players by being stricter with them and more firm and decisive with them. So I think that is a good thing. But just on Lingard, because it does say Lingard leaving as the title. So this is a story about all about how. No, I'm not going to do Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. This is about Duncan Castles, who, to be fair, has been pretty good over the last sort of 6 months. He was very early on a couple of things, early on the whole Rangnick thing as well. And he's basically saying that Newcastle are willing to offer Jesse Lingard £200,000 a week. Now, straight away, that means Lingard's leaving if he wants to leave, because nobody will pay Jesse Lingard £200,000 a week other than Newcastle. Manchester United cannot, will not, and won't offer him £200,000 a week. So Jesse Lingard at what, 20? Is he 29 now? I think he's just turning 29 next week. £200,000 a week. You've got to take that offer. You've got to take that offer. I think he's currently on around 100k a week, 120k a week, which some people think is too much anyway for what his role is at United. I mean, he's a bench player at United, isn't he? And look, on Wednesday night he didn't even perform like a bench player. To be fair to Jesse, I think the best way to judge him is his West Ham form. He can't replicate his West Ham form at Manchester United. I've heard many Man United fans say, why can't Jesse replicate his Manchester United form at West Ham form at Manchester United? But it's very, very simple. It's very, very simple indeed. I don't know whether it's how we're set up on there, and it's not actually that good, so I'll explain it verbally. So basically, when you play for Manchester United, you know, most teams will be well organised, 2 banks of 4 when you've got the ball, and there's not really much room to spin and turn into. When you play for a West Ham or a Leicester or an Everton, a lot of teams will, you know, psychologically fancy their chances against you, so they'll push higher. That their midfield will push higher. Therefore, your number 10 will get the ball where they can get the ball and spin and run into space. Well, this is Jesse Lingard's. You know, he's very good at this. Jesse Lingard on the halfway line, just past the halfway line, sort of on the, not necessarily on the break, but receiving the ball and the ability to spin and run into space. And we've seen him score goals. We've seen him slip people in. At Man United, how often does Bruno, Sancho or Jesse, when he plays, get the ball into feet and be able to spin and run at the back 4? Not very often. He suits a West Ham, an Everton, even a Newcastle, because you get more space on the break because teams don't respect you much and they will attack you. Same for Liverpool, Man City. They don't really get space to spin and run into. And that's, you know, I mean, I don't know who's Jesse's got around him. I presume he's got football people around him. They should be, you know, I understand what Lingard's best asset is, and it's spinning and running into space. He's decent with the ball. He's not very good at passing, so you want him with the ball at the feet, running into space, getting a shot off, or making something happen. That's never going to really happen in a United shirt. So he doesn't suit United. Very rarely does he. It's a bit like Dan James. Dan James doesn't suit United because he's a player that wants to kick the ball and run into space. But a lot of teams play deep against us. Doesn't make them bad players. Just doesn't make them suitable for teams that teams are going to sit back against. So, yeah, I think Lingard. That's why it won't work out for Lingard. He won't get that sort of money. And also, look, people are saying 200 grand a week for Lingard's ridiculous. Remember, he's free. Like, we've allowed his contract to run down because Solskjaer offered him bloody first team football in the summer when we should have let him go to West Ham, who were willing to give us 25 million quid. And we decided to keep Jesse, and Jesse decided to stay because he was told he was going to get first team opportunities. So let's bring this back to what really matters. Manchester United Football Club is still badly run, and hopefully it's going to get better with Rangnick. But, you know, Jesse should have gone in the summer, £25 million should have come in. We're at Christmas. Basically, we're looking at 25 million burning on the Christmas fire because what's Lingard done since the summer? Barely played. You know, goal against West Ham was good, but apart from that, it wasn't worth 25 million quid. So, yeah, I mean, Jesse will get good wages because he's out of contract. We might get a little bit in January. We might loan him off, but he's either going for nothing or next to nothing. So, look, of course Newcastle are going to offer him 200 grand a week. Should he go to Newcastle? Not for me to say, not for you to say. Ideally, I think he should be going to an Everton, a Leicester, or a West Ham because they're more suitable and stable. But in a year's time, Newcastle might be more suitable and stable than that, and Lingard's part of that. It's look, massive fan base. Massive potential, good earner. I think it's a good move for Jesse. But look, he's got to move to one of those clubs. Is he going to leave? As of now, everybody's saying that he is going to leave. Would I put my money on it that he wouldn't sign a new contract to United? No, because I thought he would go in the summer, so I'm not going to make that mistake again. But logically, everything suggests he's going to go, and I think very much on Wednesday it looked like he was going to go. And I've noticed that we've had a lot of injuries with low intense passive approach. The intensity and demand will be higher. We need reinforcements, says Nicholas. What do you make of McTominay's interview where he said he made one square pass? Should he be in the clear out too? Says Abith. I want to talk about that one. I think that why we play Jesse in the Champions League when it can be seen that his head has been turned. Who else do you think will be going in January? Well, we'll talk about that as well, Salah. So let's see what happens with Jesse. There's lots to get through this morning, so please smash a like on the video. So Ralph Rangnick, this is from ESPN, Rob Dawson. Sources have told that Ralph Rangnick suggested scouts take a clearer look at Leipzig's Hadara, also identifying Dortmund's Jude Bellingham and Leeds United's Calvin Phillips as potential midfield targets. Bellingham's Dortmund teammate Haaland, a long-term Man United target, was also mentioned by Rangnick to the club. This is all from ESPN. Rangnick believes the squad he inherited from Solskjaer is too big, and because of that, outgoings are more likely than notable arrivals. Although Rangnick has been back to explore the possibility of new signings in January, both he and United expect a quiet month with more focused on outgoings. And interestingly, Mark Ogden has said this morning that Everton's long-standing interest in Donny van der Beek has ended since Marcel Brands left his post as Director of Football at Goodison Park. So that's a bit of good news that Everton and Donny probably not going to happen. But there won't be a shortage of people wanting Donny if we want him. And I think that's where we are. I'm not disillusioned or disappointed by that opinion. I think we all have this opinion. We need a midfielder. Rangnick has identified a midfielder. There are targets, but in January, will we bring a midfielder in? Who knows, probably 50-50. The priority is to remove players. And we spoke about this 3 days ago. Solskjaer would have had to move players out. Rangnick has got to move players out. He's inherited a massive squad. He's got to move players out. Now, Jesse Lingard obviously fits into that. Mata and Matic will go. Cavani's going to go. So, look, they've not all got to go in January, but there's 4 players that can go straight away there. The midfield is really, really important. Let me just talk about this Scott McTominay thing. So if you haven't seen the clip, the best thing I can advise you to do is if you go to @MarkGoldbridge on Twitter, give me a follow. That's it. I'm just plugging my Twitter. No. Go to @MarkGoldbridge on Twitter. Please do give me a follow. But if you check my likes, I liked the clip of somebody who put up about Scott McTominay yesterday. Now, yesterday I was getting tagged into a lot of things because people think I hate Scott McTominay, which I don't. I don't hate any footballer. I don't really hate anybody. But the reality is, I haven't rated him, and I've been honest about it. I thought he played okay at the weekend. I thought Fred was on a different planet to him, but I thought McTominay was okay. So I saw this clip, and effectively, he just comes across as rude at the start. There's no need for it. I mean, all right, some people might say, well, Roy Keane did that for years, but Roy Keane won Premier League titles. There's nothing wrong with being rude as a footballer when you're being asked a question that you don't like. But your football ability needs to back it up. And if it doesn't back it up, you can come across as a bit of a knob. I don't think he came across as a massive knob. Some people do. I just think he what he says is completely incorrect, which is basically it was on Sky, and as I said, if you go to @MarkGoldbridge on Twitter and go to my like section, it's the top liked thing. Well, it's the last liked thing. It's not my top liked thing. I've just liked it so people can see it. So, and this fits in with Rangnick wanting a midfielder, because basically the Sky interviewer says to Scott McTominay, so Rangnick said after the game against Crystal Palace there were too many sideways passes, to which McTominay jumps in and goes, he said one. All right, he said one. Well, he said one about, well, it's not two then, is it, mate? And he was like really quite stern. He said one, and basically the interviewer was, that was not the question, basically. The question was, Rangnick has identified that there's too many sideways passes from the midfield. So McTominay jumps in and goes, he said one, not two, mate. And the interviewer has to go, all right then, one from you, one from Fred, but the point is there's been too many. What's your thoughts on that? McTominay then goes on to answer the question in a way I don't really think he understands the question. But look, the point is, it comes across as a bit, I understand why some people think it's a bit moody, because he has played countless sideways and backwards passes over the last 3 months. So for him to jump in and moodily say he said one, well, we can all count probably 10 from that Crystal Palace game. So it obviously touched a nerve. And I've said the only thing I would say is, and I know this for a fact, I know some United players who are very open, and understand what it is to play for Manchester United, understand that criticism's there, and ultimately criticism means that you're not doing your job and you've got to be your own biggest critic. There are other players in that club who believe they shouldn't be criticised and think they are it. And I'm not going to name those players because it's not fair. I want, it's a new United, it's a reset. But what they do need to do as a whole is realise that when you get criticised, in the main, it's because you're not performing to the levels. Now, in the case of a Scott McTominay, if you're getting criticised, mate, it's probably because United fans have probably... Some of them have seen Brian Robson. Some of us have seen Paul Ince, Roy Keane, Paul Scholes, Michael Carrick. We've seen really good midfielders, top-class midfielders, world-class midfielders. And that is what we think of when we see a Manchester United midfielder. And we're not letting the standards drop. We're not going to go, oh, those were the days of our life. We've got McTominay and Fred now. That's just the way it's going to be. No, we're Manchester United. I want to see a Robson, an Ince, a Keane, a Nicky Butt. That's the level that we should be at. So if you get criticised, it's because you've got to be that good. And if you don't like the criticism, be that good. It's as simple as that. Snapping at interviewers who are actually asking a very valid question. You've been criticised because you're playing too many sideways passes, and you go, I played one. Well, you didn't, because somebody will clip up a load of clips of you passing it backwards and sideways. You're well known, as is Fred, for doing a little tiptoe, change to the other foot and pass it back to Harry Maguire. We've been doing it for a year. So what the Sky Sports interviewer was basically saying is, Rangnick's come in and said, you play too many sideways passes. What's your reaction? No, I don't. But you do. You actually do. And he's going to make you stop, and he's going to make you a better player. But crossing your arms and going, he said one, not two, mate. Well, that just comes across as very defensive on something that if you open your arms and go, the way you should have answered it is, look, we're playing a different brand of football now. Passing it forward obviously helps our attackers more. And, we've probably been playing a bit pragmatic for the last year. Under Rangnick, he wants to play a different way. And it is about me and Fred looking up and getting that ball forward to our attackers and shielding them and doing our job. That was the way to answer it. The way he answered it is, and let me just read these super chats. Rickster says, I also read that Rangnick is looking at Lokomotiv Moscow's Maida as a backup centre midfield, says Rickster. Funny how Scott's best attribute is his passion and him knowing what United is all about, but he responds so poorly to criticism. Weak mentality, says Julian. Fans too quick to hate on players for their favourites, need to appreciate the importance of a solid bench and options, rather fullbacks be playing well. Nicholas, I think you're absolutely spot on there. And look, I don't think what McTominay said yesterday was bad, and I certainly don't think it's any reason to dislike the lad. I think he's going to be very important for us over the next few weeks. But I think what it did do is it does expose in that club, in certain players, an unwillingness to accept criticism, and he really didn't want to take that criticism. He didn't want it. I don't pass backward. Well, you do. And the scary thing about this and the importance of a sports psychologist is he was massively defensive about something that is very true. You do pass the ball sideways too much and backwards, and so does Fred. So to jump on the interviewer's throat and go, he said one, mate, not two, it just came across as really, if you are getting that angry about that question, it obviously hit a nerve, and it wasn't that deep, Scott. It's basically, we've all been doing it. The whole team has been doing it for a year. Slow tempo, side to side crab football. We even did it under Van Gaal. All the interviewer was saying is that Rangnick wants the team to move the ball forward quicker, and you and Fred are very important at that, and embrace it. And he took it further, and and I don't even know what he was talking about then, because then he said that what did he say? He said something along the lines of, so he was asked about passing the ball forward, and after his little episode about I do pass it forward, he basically then said that every team presses the middle with such intensity because they don't want you to pass through the middle. I think what Ralph wants is regains, making mistakes, so that when the opposition make mistakes, you win the ball back, and it's about being flexible, which is not a problem. And I was like, that's not what we're talking about. So his answer to the Rangnick wanting the ball to move forward was that it's difficult to pass it forward because everyone presses with such intensity. So it's actually about winning the ball back. And then, but you know, I don't know. I don't really know what his answer meant, because when you win the ball back, what do you do with the ball, Scott? Pass it forward. Yeah, pass it forward. That's the whole question was basically, Rangnick says you pass the ball sideways too much as a midfield. He wants you to pass the ball forward. And then we wander into, yeah, but everyone presses from the middle like Liverpool, so it's about regains. Okay, what do you do when you regain the ball then? Pass it forward. So I think he just lost the plot on that first question, and that to me shows a weak mentality, and it also shows that there are people in that football club who don't want to take criticism on, and we've got a brand new manager, and I would have expected a different answer to that a week into a new manager's reign. And it seemed to me that he just got lost on the criticism of his sideways passing, which obviously hit a nerve. And if it hits a nerve, it's probably something he's aware of. And if it's something he's aware of, he's going to improve on it. And that's why, for me, I don't think it was such a big deal. I think it's a reset, it's a new United. But as part of that reset, we already know there's some players in that team who just don't think they should get criticised because they wear a Manchester United shirt. And unfortunately, we've not been anywhere near a major trophy for a very long time. And everybody has been scrutinised. And ultimately, listen to the question. Our manager wants the ball to be moved forward more. Start moving the ball forward more, which we saw at the weekend. So let's see what it's all about. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with going in on an interviewer. Roy Keane used to do it all the time, but do it from a position of strength. Do it with the Premier League's medal in your drawer. Do it with a hat trick in the last game or a man of the match performance. Don't start doing it in this position. But no, I think Harry Maguire's another one. I do. Look, I don't want to name names because it's all about reset and it's a new United. But we've seen it from Harry Maguire as well. You know, running around like that. This and that. I'm not saying it's those players. I know some other players who are like it as well. But they need to understand that this is a new United. A lot of United players are getting a fresh, clean slate. Do they deserve it? In my mind, they do. Some people think they don't, but they're getting a fresh, clean slate. Don't abuse it, moaning about things from the past. I mean, at the end of the day, why get moody? Why get moody about somebody asking you about sideways passing when most of it happened under a manager who's just been sacked? If it's a new start, embrace the new start. Being defensive like that shows immaturity and poor mental strength. He knows that he's right. He knows that he is right. Back it up with good performances, Scott lad. And yeah, I thought he played well against Palace. I thought Fred played really well against Palace. I expect them to play well against Norwich. They are in possession of that midfield shirt at the moment. And if we don't buy a midfielder in January, they could be in possession with it until the end of the season. And then if you're in possession with it until the end of the season, maybe you take it into next season. Now that scares some people, but look, that's the opportunity they've got at the moment. So let's wait and see what happens with it. But yeah, as I said, midfield is the area that Rangnick really wants to improve, but can he get people in January? I mean, look, I think United should be looking to bring somebody in, and that Hadara, as I said yesterday, would be really interesting. Talk of Jude Bellingham and Calvin Phillips, well, they're longer term options, aren't they? And Jude Bellingham's going to be very difficult to get out of Dortmund. I don't think they'll want Bellingham to go this summer anyway. I think you can read Dortmund very, very well. When we were interested in Sancho, it felt like he wasn't going to be going until the summer after, and then we missed that, so we didn't get him for 2 years. Haaland's the one that's going to go this year. Bellingham probably goes next year, and that's the way Dortmund work. They'll let one good player go each summer. So Bellingham, I don't think is going anywhere this summer anyway. Calvin Phillips, look, I can see why Rangnick would like him. He's a very dynamic, tenacious midfielder, and in a Bielsa system, he's used to getting the ball back and winning it. I mean, we're not asking for, the next Kante. We're looking for somebody to play into our system, and I certainly think Calvin Phillips could do that, but ideally it wouldn't be Calvin Phillips for me, because I think he'd cost you a lot of money, and I think you could get a better player around Europe, which is where I would expect Rangnick to come in. But look, I think things are looking good. Obviously, we've got the press conference from Rangnick coming up at around 2 o'clock today, and it'd be interesting to see what he says. But as I said in my preview, you can check out, I don't expect many changes. Looks like Rangnick is piling on the pressure, says Matty Ross. But this is what you want. We do want pressure on the players. And look, I've never been a professional footballer, so I can't speak about this. But if I'm sat in an interview with anybody and they criticise me, my first reaction is not going to be, no. It's going to be, just take a second, have a little laugh to yourself and think, right, okay, look, I play for Manchester United. I'm going to play tomorrow. They're just trying to get a rise out of me. Okay, so I don't pass the ball forward enough. Okay. Well, look, at the end of the day, we've got a new manager now. He's got a new way of playing, and we're all really excited about it. And obviously, he's going to have different ideas to other managers. Our job as players is to implement those ideas and get Manchester United back winning on the pitch, and I'm really looking forward to it. Next question. It's not hard. It's not hard to answer a difficult question in this environment, because you've got the biggest get-out clause ever. But we've got a new manager now. He's got new ideas. He's only been here a week, and you've got to respect those ideas. There's no need to start going, no. Just chill out, and it's a fresh start. It's a clean slate. It's exciting, and look, did it come across a little bit resistance against protecting yourself against things that happened under the previous manager? Yes, it did, and that's why it's just mild. It's minor to me. It's not that deep. But all I would say to any United player, and I know a lot of them are like this anyway, they're embracing the change. They're excited by the change. It is hard work. I said this to you last Saturday. One of the feedbacks I got on Saturday evening was that from the training ground was that the players already know after one training session it's going to be very, very hard compared to what they're used to, but they're very excited because they're professional footballers. Look, they're on good money. They play for Manchester United, but they've only got a short career. And if you're Bruno Fernandes or you're Fred or you're Luke Shaw or Harry Maguire or Marcus Rashford, do you want to look back in 10 years and go, I played for Manchester United, we never got in a title race, we never really won a trophy, but I earned good money and I got about 500,000, I got a few million followers on Twitter? Or do you want to go, yeah, I played for Manchester United, we won a couple of trophies and I'll never forget it? And they want that. They're professional athletes. They've worked very hard to get where they are. And they do want that, and they are excited about it, and they know it's going to be hard work. But that hard work is not something a professional footballer is scared of. The big line about Man United at the moment is that where they were was nice, and they liked the coaches, and it was, they wanted to win. They did. They didn't down tools. They liked, respected, and enjoyed the coaching before. But the contrast to where they are now is that, well, look, Rangnick's not got me on a WhatsApp group. He's my manager. And bloody hell, his training is on a different level to anything we've had for the last 3 years. Time to go to work. And that mentality is right, because the other one was a bit like a holiday club. Everyone got on with each other. This one feels more like a professional football club. And if you think about it at Man City, with Pep Guardiola and all the titles they've won, they don't go into training every day and Pep's there going, what are we getting for Secret Santa? He's the boss. He is the boss. He is respected. They love him. And they work hard for him every single day. At United, we didn't really have that respect. They liked Ollie, they liked the coaches, but they didn't really respect their coaching. They thought they did, but now they understand what coaching's all about. It'll be refreshing to have a manager that will genuinely emphasise our youth academy and playing younger players. Change is coming, says Blake. Yeah, it is coming, and it's going to take time for that change to kick in. But players need to embrace it, fans need to embrace it. And I liked that previous comment that somebody said there, that now is not the time to hold on to agendas or issues. I mean, I'd say that about McTominay's interview. Just let it go. Let it go. Focus on becoming a better player and, leave the negativity behind. And I'd say that to fans as well. I've heard it about Wan-Bissaka and, I just think, look, we've got two good right-backs there. Let the fight commence. Does it, but people are, I think people just, I've even seen it with Dean Henderson this week. Oh, Dean should be the goalkeeper now. Fuck David De Gea out of our club. And I'm like, and they're United fans. I follow some of them, and I'm like, whoa. So David De Gea is just one player of the month. He's had an amazing season. Dean Henderson plays for an hour against young boys, does very little. And now Dean Henderson should be the goalkeeper again. Why? Because these people don't like David De Gea, even though they're United fans. And I'm like, I just can't get my head around this. I can't get my head around this new sort of football fan that has agendas against their own players because they prefer another player. I'm like, all I want is Manchester United to win. Like, if the team tomorrow against Norwich was Dean Henderson, Dalot, Telles, Harry Maguire, Victor Lindelof, McFred, Lingard, none of my favourites are playing, and we win 4-0, I'd be like, yes. Because I just want Manchester United to win, and I trust the manager, and that's what it's all about. And just by the way, Wan-Bissaka's not going to be playing tomorrow. He's injured, so Dalot will play. But Dalot was going to play anyway. I'm not bothered. I like Wan-Bissaka, but I like Dalot. And, ultimately, do I want Dalot to play every game because he's my favourite right-back and play a 7 out of 10? Or what, do I want to see Dalot and Wan-Bissaka fighting it out and they're playing 8 out of 10 every time they play? That's what I want to see. I want to see it with Telles as well. I want to see it with Bailly at the back. I want to see rotation and players being given chances that the previous regime didn't. Eric Bailly deserves a run in that team. He's never going to get it, but what I would like to think is that at some point over the Christmas period he actually gets a couple of starts. Maybe Maguire doesn't play against Brighton and Bailly does. That's what I want to see, because these players deserve a chance. I think, look, who's the better player? Telles or Shaw, Wan-Bissaka or Dalot, Bailly or Maguire? Who's the better player? You know what? You fight an argument yourself. I don't care. What I want to see is fair. To me, at the moment, Telles and Shaw are looking good. Wan-Bissaka, I think, and will be looking good when he's back fit. Bailly's looking good. Maguire looks revitalised. I don't really care who's better. I want to see fairness, because we are going to be playing high intense football. So I want to see people being given rotation and chances, which is what we didn't see before. Which is why in the midfield we need to invest, because I tell you what, McTominay and Fred, whether you like them or not, they can't play every game. The intensity required is huge. So who's going to play instead of them? Matic can't really play. Can't play in 90 minutes. Donny, I'd like to see given more game time, but that's only one player. Pogba's not back for a month. Will Pogba even play in the deeper role? Probably play in the more advanced role. So we do need to bring somebody in. If he recesses an interview like that, he must do with Ralph too, and that needs dropping. Even more so, Van der Beek has a good game midweek, says Abajath. And Scooby-Doo, Ralph Rangnick dominating the players, not like Ollie, says full tactical. And Bolver, thank you very much. Carnival Cup Mark, thank you very much for that. I mean, look, one thing I would say, and I'm not one for dwelling on any sort of negatives at the moment. As I said, for me, it's not that deep, the McTominay thing. I just think it exposes a deeper problem at United, which is that there are players in that playing staff who think they're better than they are and don't like criticism. And it's not just the 2 or 3 players you think it is. I can think of 7 off the top of my head. I'm not going to name them because that's not what it's all about. But I did say this when Rangnick came in. As much as we're happy as fans, and as much as we're excited about a new change, never forget that there's always, how do I phrase this? There's always possibilities that things can go bad as much as they can go good. Now, people would say, well, how can it go bad? We've got a great manager. Well, not great. I wouldn't call him a great manager. We've got an exciting manager with clear ideas that are very different to what we've done for the last 8 years, and it's looking really exciting. It is. But a naive person would say, we're going to win the league, everything's sorted now. What if some of these players aren't happy? What if they're not happy? What if some of these players are like, I don't like this. Oh, he shouted. Did you see what he did, Harry? He shouted at me. He shouted at me. He told me I'm not doing it right. Well, I don't like this. Ollie would never do it. Let's have a meeting. And I'm not saying that's going to happen. I think that would be ridiculous if that happened, but it's logical when you look at United this season before Rangnick came in, and some would say even last season, but certainly this season, it's logical that Rangnick's going to have some difficult conversations with people. He's, first teamers about how they're playing, that's not good enough. And then what about the fringe players? What about the players who went to speak to Ollie in the summer and said, look, am I part of your plans? Because if not, I'm going to go. Of course you're part of my plans. We'll give you game time. 6 months later, he hasn't given them game time. Those same players are going to go to Rangnick and say, look, am I part of your plans? No. Well, I'm not happy. Well, you're not. Rangnick's got to make difficult decisions because of the previous regime. He's got to tell players they're going, who were told in the summer that they're staying, and then didn't get game time. He's also got to tell his first team players, you're doing that badly. So I think that's his only risk, is that he's new. He hasn't got his own coaching staff. He's still got Phelan, McKenna and loads of other coaches that are part of the Ollie regime and get on with the players really well. And he's, if he goes too hard on them, there could be a little bit of a backlash. But I would hope not, because if there was, we know where the blame is. Don't understand why people have agendas on players because they're favourites in that position. We need the depth in quality and competition, says Schmogs. And Hendo too good to be second choice, says DK. Well, I think he 100% Henderson. I agree. He's got to go on loan in January. David De Gea is the number one. He's proven himself to be the number one, and we'll see. Why we got justice for Paul in the chat? I don't know. Has anything come out about Paul? Free Paul. Pogba's leaving for United for PSG. Let's have a quick look. I've not seen anything about that. Let's have a look if there's anything breaking, or is it just the United stand chat thing. Apparently Dean Smith of Norwich has confirmed that Norwich have got COVID related issues ahead of tomorrow's match. Could end up getting called off. 3 or 4 players, that might get called off. Rangnick explained why the club should look to invest in midfield and suggested scouts take. Okay, so nothing. I can't see anything. I can't really see anything about. Pogba. But Dean Smith is talking about COVID-related illnesses. I mean, I don't know and don't want to talk about this because it's just so bloody tiring. But the problem we've got in England at the moment is that, and around the world, is this Omicron COVID variant. And basically it's, I mean, I'm no expert in the field, but it looks like it's not as serious in relation to serious illness, but it's way more infectious. The problem you've got is in the football is that footballers are no longer being kept in these bubbles like they were last season. They're circulating more freely, and therefore I think football is quite vulnerable at the moment because COVID is spreading a lot more, and footballers are not as haven't had to be behaving as strictly as they were before. Now, whether those changes will happen quickly enough, I don't know, but I can see there being big problems, and maybe Norwich tomorrow is a big problem because I can't see Spurs game happening. They got their game against Rennes abandoned, and I think that their game at the weekend will probably get abandoned as well. I think they're playing Brighton, aren't they, or something like that. So that's not looking good for United against Norwich tomorrow. I mean, look, it's good for United because I think that we will have enough players to play the game tomorrow, but we'll see. We saw Van der Beek Wednesday trying to play forward passes, something that Passenger hasn't done for over a year. He should listen. The criticism, free Donny, says Mason. Mate, they're talking about Paul's super chat, says I am me. I didn't see it. Do you think last year's struggles are primarily due to poor player quality or lack of structure and confidence, says Daniel? Down to coaching, Daniel. Simple as that. Simple as that. So look, we'll have to wait and see what happens with Norwich. We've still. I tell you what. I think I speak for everybody here. I'm just fed up of the COVID world. I'm fucking fed up of it. I mean, whether you want the jab or you don't, the reality is, in the UK, we're still getting massive amount of infections, and we were anyway because a lot of people aren't vaccinated, and that's up to them. But now what's going to happen is we've got this new brand of of COVID that is going to spread all around over Christmas, which is a time where I like to watch a lot of football, and we're going to see loads of bloody games cancelled again, and I'm fed up of it. I'm so fucking fed up of it. And, all people want to do is watch football, and it probably isn't going to happen, is it? So, I really am quite frustrated by it. Does it feel like there's resistance from the players? I sensed it with Bruno and now with Scott. Love the content, Mark. Love from Kenya, says Alan. Well, I don't know. I mean, in relation to in relation to like the players and frustration, I think the club and maybe some of our fans might have contributed to this in an indirect way. The sacking of Solskjaer almost became a celebration. Like, he was sacked because he wasn't good enough, and it almost became a bit of a celebration, didn't it, in relation to, you know, a memorial or something like that. And the reality, he was sacked. So I don't know whether there's any sort of I don't know. It's difficult to say what's going on at the club at the moment in relation to that. But I certainly don't think there will be resistance. I think the players, look, whether it's Bruno, McTominay, Maguire, whoever you want to call, the point remains that there is definitely some players in that team who have a high opinion of themselves and don't want to take any criticism, and that needs to change. And I think Rangnick will change that, and maybe there's a bit of resistance to that change, but that change has to happen. Matty Ross, can you see it affecting the league, Mark? Yeah, I can see games going to get cancelled. 2/3 of all COVID cases, deaths in the UK are fully jabbed, says Mike. See, I don't want to get into this. The reality is, Michael, if you look at the amount of infections in the UK over the last 3 months, 75% of it is people who are unvaccinated. So, you know, this is not about vaccinations. I don't care if you have it or not. It's freedom of choice. What I'm saying is that we have now got another brand of COVID which is going to spread massively over the next few weeks, and I think it's going to have a major impact on football, because it's whether the clubs and the Premier League can get players quickly enough to basically start isolating again to allow football to continue. They did a great job last year, but I think when there was no fans in the ground, it sharpened the minds. I don't think minds are like that anymore. I don't think people are that, and this is the problem, because COVID now is killing less people, but it's still very infectious. If you got COVID a year ago, it was like, oh my God, you know, I've got to stay away from everybody. I don't want anyone to get it because it might kill them. If you get COVID now, people are like, well, I feel a bit under the weather, but I'm still going down the pub, because not as many people are dying from it because people have been vaccinated, etc. La la la. So players like the general public are less likely to just stay at home now to avoid going near anybody, and therefore, if you get a couple of cases in your club and it spreads quickly, that's that club 2 weeks out of action. We're only 2 weeks away from Christmas Day, so, you know, how many games can United get to play? How many games can other people get to play? It's difficult to know, but I certainly think I'd be very worried about that Norwich game now. I think there's a chance that it's going to get called off, because precedence has been set. Norwich played Spurs last week. Spurs have already had a game called off. They're going to get the Premier League game called off. Norwich will be saying, well, why can't we have the game called off? So Man United against Norwich tomorrow hopefully will go ahead, but I'd certainly be concerned about it at the moment. You know, I think that, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. I couldn't find any super chat from Paul, so I don't know what was said, but, you know, carry on having your own little fun in the chat. It's gone right over my head, so I can't talk about it. Spurs versus Brighton has already been called off, says Lou, and McTominay won't improve on his passing. Whoever's saying refund Paul, he's obviously withdrawn the chat himself because it's not in the back system, so, you know, you're wasting time talking about whatever you're talking about because I've got no idea what he said. And there is no super chat in the back system, so he's obviously withdrawn it. British players at Manchester United have a weak mentality, says William. Well, that's very, very stereotypical and unfair. And Mark, Paul said you don't read super chats. Well, I think we all know I do read super chats. In fact, I've just read a super chat. Any news about Joao Felix, says Alex. This is a story from Spain, actually. I wasn't even going to mention it, but I will do because Alex asked. I don't know. I feel like I'm folding my arms now after the Paul thing. I've gone all Scott McTominay. I do read him, but no. So there's a story coming in from Spain that Manchester United have inquired about Joao Felix. Why? Why? How? It doesn't make any sense. One, we don't need Joao Felix because we're stacked in that area, and two, he'd cost a lot of money because Atletico Madrid paid a lot of money for him. Now, whether Atletico Madrid are looking to offload players, I don't know. I know there was talk of Joao Felix going to Barcelona, wasn't there? And Griezmann coming back to Madrid, which he did. But maybe Atletico Madrid are looking to offload Joao Felix, but I don't see, well, look, mate, if Ralph Rangnick comes into the club and says, I don't fancy Bruno, Pogba or Sancho, I want Joao Felix, then those sort of things can happen. But to me at the moment, it just feels like a very tentative story that nothing will happen with. And again, I've got to be honest, if I heard that we were going for Joao Felix, I'd be very pissed off, because we can't keep ignoring the midfield. And I think the good thing about Rangnick is the stories that we're getting and the things that we're hearing is that Rangnick has come in and said the weak area of that United team is the midfield. Now, don't tell Scott McTominay, because he'll go, no, he didn't. But the reality is the area, the problem of Manchester United is the midfield. Now, hear me out on this. It's not because McTominay and Fred are crap. It's because beyond McTominay and Fred, who've we got? So, unfold your arms, Scott. We're not digging you out at all. It's a reset. Please keep improving. But if you get injured or Fred gets injured, who's playing next year? Won't matter. That's why the midfield is a weak area. That's why it's been called a bagel or the mint with a hole. We don't have a lot of depth in the midfield. We've got a lot of depth at centre-back. Full-backs looking good. Goalkeepers, we've got 3. Up front, we've got loads of options. But in the midfield, I mean, I don't know. It's amazing to say this, but if we lost Fred, I don't mean like he goes walking in the Trafford Centre or anything like that. I mean, if we lose Fred for an injury, we're in big trouble. Matic can't play 90 minutes, and then Donny I think can play that role, but some people think he doesn't. He can't. There's no youth player, and Pogba's injured, so we're very short in that area, and I think Rangnick realises that. If games get called off, at least Rangnick has more time to train with the players. I think Joao Felix would do great in a Rangnick team, says Kush. Mark, Ralph must be doing his job right if players moaning. He's not there to be their mates, he's there to win, says Andy and Bruno. Exactly. Mark, do you think it's harmful that our fan base alienates squad players and labels them finished? Imagine if City had that mentality. I do, Jimmy. I do. I'm not happy about it, but look, it's all about opinion, and I can't tell people what to think, and people can't tell me what to think. But I have noticed it in the fan base a lot over the last sort of 3 years that we've become sort of favourites as well. It's funny because people, in the main, people criticised Ollie for having favourites, and yet our fan base has favourites. Premier League clubs should only allow fully vaccinated fans in the stadium. I hate games getting cancelled, says Cartel. Yeah, but in fairness to that, I mean, that's a controversial thing. Apparently it's going to come in next Friday that you can only go and watch a match if you've had the vaccine. So vaccine passports, they're going to call it. Probably not a bad idea in relation to protection of the public who are attending games, but that's not why. Spurs against Norwich last week, they haven't got COVID because 5,000 Spurs fans haven't had the vaccine and were coughing and it all carried on to Harry Kane's face. Like, the reality is that has started because players have mingled with people who've got the vaccine, who've got COVID in their private lives. They've then gone training and passed it around. So that's the only way we're going to keep games going is if the Premier League clamps down really hard on clubs and clubs clamp down really hard on their players and say, look, it might be Christmas, but stop mingling with people. Go back to what we were doing a year ago, whereby, your time is your time. No bloody pissing about, going to parties and stuff like that. This is your livelihoods. This is our season. And it's going to be interesting. I mean, what could happen? You could end up with the Premier League being shut down for a month. We could end up with, some teams missing 2 weeks of fixtures and then having a backlog at the end of the season. You don't want that. I mean, this is why I don't want United games to get cancelled, because you could end up in a stupid situation where you hit March when the COVID infections come down. You've had 5-6 games cancelled over the winter, and then you're suddenly playing ridiculous amounts of games with the Champions League. You don't want games cancelled. So let's wait and see. Jones everyday says, hi Mark, can't wait for Monday's Champions League draw where we draw Bayern or PSG and Man City somehow draw Wigan. You've nicked that, but it's a good one. And I didn't withdraw my super chat. I love you, Mark, says Paul. I spend more on United than Man United, but you don't read my super chats. Last 3 ignored. What's the point? Well, Paul, that doesn't happen. And the reality is, I'm not going to do a Scott McTominay and go, you're wrong. But the reality is, I've always said, if I see the super chat when I'm talking, it gets read out, but some of them do slip through. It's not the super chat show, it's the morning show. The intention is to read every super chat, but some of them do slip through, and I've been very open and honest about that. There are channels out there that don't read super chats at all, so there's no written in the contract if you do a super chat it definitely gets read. I appreciate it. Most of them do get read, some of them don't. Hashtag deal with it. But thank you very much, Paul. Now, if you've got anything interesting to add, please ask a decent question. The players will think if the PM can have a party, why can't we? Says Daniel Kirk. But let's pretend Paul actually made a valid point, and Paul was talking about the players, the favouritism in the fan club. It is funny because Ollie got really ridiculed for having favourites, and yet our fan base does it. And look, it was a really good point. It wasn't by Paul, but let's pretend it was by Paul. Let's make Paul feel better. Fly away, Paul. Fly away, Peter. Come back, Peter. Come back, Paul. And Graham says, don't read this super chat. And hi, Mark, do you feel that Rangnick is doing a good job thus far, and do you think there are any faults with him? Mate, it's way too early. It's way too early to talk about Rangnick. I'm very excited still. I'm really, the only thing that's bothering me at the moment is Paul. No, is this match getting cancelled tomorrow? I'm feeling tense again. I haven't felt like this for a long time. I don't want to see games getting cancelled. But look, I have heard people say Wan-Bissaka's finished, get out of my club, Deleu's back, and it's like, well, what if Deleu pulls his hamstring for 6 weeks? Oh, Wan-Bissaka, can you come back again now? And that's what I don't think people realise. I've said it about Pogba before. Get Pogba out of my club. And I'm like, we haven't got a replacement. Like, oh, we don't need Pogba now. Fuck off, Pogba. And I'm like, well, Pogba's a really good player. And yes, he's been a bit inconsistent. And yes, we've not got the best out of him. But he's still a Man United player till May. Do I want Paul Pogba to play for Man United between now and May? Yes, I do. Do I think he's going to leave in the summer? Yes, I do. Does that mean we shouldn't play him? Does that mean we should say, get out of our club, you're finished? No. We have a squad at the start of the season. And we have a squad for the season. And that's what we have at the moment. Would I make changes to this squad? Yes. Can I make changes right now? No. Do we therefore need to get the best out of what we've got? Yes. Does that mean backing what we've got? Yes. I don't care who the left back is. I'd probably prefer Shaw. I don't care who the right back is. At the moment, I probably would give Deleu a go, even though I really like Wan-Bissaka. I think Wan-Bissaka will benefit from what happened to Shaw when we bought Telles. He needs a bit of a rest. He needs a bit of competition. Do I prefer Maguire or Bailly? I prefer Bailly, to be honest, at the moment. But Maguire could come into form now. But I tell you what I prefer. I tell you what I like best out of everything. I like Manchester United best. I like Manchester United winning best. And realistically, there's been plenty of players over the years at Man United that I didn't like playing ahead of players that I preferred. But I liked winning. And I think we need to get back into that. It's Manchester United. It's not whatever player you like the best. And look, I love Ronaldo and I love Bruno. If they got dropped for Cavani and Lingard and we won every game and won the FA Cup and the Champions League, I'd be, there's nothing to moan about. The only time to moan is when players are playing badly and they're being picked ahead of players that you think are better. Well, at the moment, under a reset, that's hypocritical. Deleu is performing better than Wan-Bissaka at the moment, and he's in the team. Eric Bailly probably deserves to start a game, but Maguire played decently at the weekend, and so did Lindelof. So he's going to have to wait for his chance. I don't send super chats to get read out. I do it because I appreciate you and United Stand community. If they get read out, great. But if they don't, it's okay, says Kashina. Well, to be honest, most of yours do seem to be timed to get read out. Rashford's not happy, says Clayton. I don't know. I don't know about Rashford. Rashford's a player that does get mentioned a lot on this channel. But it's probably the only place I ever hear Rashford being discussed in a proper way. I think some people are scared to talk about Rashford because he does so much great work off the pitch. The mainstream media daren't talk about Rashford. I think as a community we've always been very good at talking about Rashford. And it's well known I like Rashford. I think a lot of you like Rashford. Some of you don't. But I'm not going to not talk about him because, oh, you know what, it's Sir Marcus Rashford. And I think what he does off the pitch is great. But I think Rashford. I don't think Rashford would be unhappy. He's still starting games. I mean, arguably, should Rashford be starting games anyway? His form's not been very good. He's not really a striker, and yet he's still playing. I would, if I was Marcus Rashford, it'd be a little bit. I want to play on the wing, and we're not really playing with wingers anymore. But it's all about adapting. I imagine Rashford's very happy. He's starting games for Manchester United. He's over his injury problems. Yeah, there's a bit of problem with his form, but you know, he's not lost his place. Cavani's not fit. Martial's not fit. So, you know, he's only really got Greenwood to fight with at the moment. And I think there's a number of players at United at the moment that really are on the cusp of potentially going on a really good run of form. Like Rashford's way better than his form, and if he gets into form, it could be really interesting. Also, the media's fault. Lincoln is sometimes the sensational transfers, always the new shiny choice, says Genwell. Vaccine passports are dangerous as people who are vaccinated will be spreading it and will not be getting tested. Why don't people see this as true? And keep it up, Mark. Thank you very much from Mason. Anyway, thanks everyone for watching. We will be back around 2 o'clock with Rangnick's press conference. Obviously keep your eyes and ears on the fact that the Norwich game could be cancelled. It's funny, I thought about this morning. I thought, you know, Spurs games getting cancelled. COVID seems to be a lot more infectious at the moment than it ever has been, probably because Omicron is more infectious than Delta variant. And it's going to go through teams. So we might have a bad month or two where we're going to get a lot of games cancelled, because Spurs won't be able to play for probably another week, will they? I don't think Spurs will be playing midweek next week either. And then the next team gets it and then they're not playing. So we're going to see reduced. I mean, it's going to play havoc with the fancy Premier League team, isn't it? Mark, who's City's first choice left back? I think it's whoever Pep picks on the day, and the same with the rest of his team. We should be the same. I love that comment from Sean from Ireland. I don't want to look at Man City and go, that's how we should be run. But to be fair, Man City looked at how we were run 10 years ago and went, that's how they want to be run. And then we stopped being run well. But you're absolutely spot on. From game to game, you don't know whether Pep's going to put Kyle Walker at right back, or he's going to move Cancelo there. Or is he going to play Cancelo at left back and play Kyle Walker? Or is Zinchenko going to play there? Centre backs, he's got Laporte, he's got Stones, he's got Diaz. Sometimes he plays Aki. That's rotation, is when you've got 18 players who can come into the first team at any one point and be rotated, and that's where United need to get to. But unfortunately, our fan base is a little bit resistant to it because they always want to see their favourite playing. Thanks everybody for watching. Please smash a like on the video and subscribe. Do check out Mark Goldbridge. I've got a great driving with Goldbridge Old Trafford road trip, because I was there yesterday and I did a video on the way up. So check that out on the Mark Goldbridge channel. That's coming out around lunchtime today. We're back for, I nearly said Ollie's press conference. Oh, God, stop talking about Ollie. He's been sacked, Goldbridge. You never shut up about him. Ralph's press conference coming up. Speak to you.